We are here this morning to interview Gary Null. Gary was born in Lindale, Texas in June of 1946, served in the U.S. Army from November of 1966 until October of 1968. Highest rank attained was E5. We're doing this interview in Burleson, Texas. Today is Friday, July the 9th, 2010. This interview is conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress and also for Operation Remember for the city of Burleson, Texas. And with that little introduction, Gary, we'll let you tell us about your time in the U.S. military, sir.
Okay.
Your story.
I was supposed to have graduated high school in 1965. Didn't quite make it, but I got a draft card, a draft notice in 1965. So I went up to Big Spring. There was our draft board and talked to them and got it extended because I was still in school. And then I didn't like about 2 credits getting out of school. So I worked a half a day, went to school half a day, and in '66, I come to Fort Worth and had an uncle lived here, and we got on with General Dynamics out there. And was going home one weekend. I'd stopped out at Weatherford and looked at a Mustang, pretty thing. Called my dad and said, "Dad, would you co-sign for this?" And he said, "Sure, but you got a letter here." And asked him what it was, and he said, "Well, you've been drafted." So, not too happy I didn't get my Mustang. And November the 9th, I rode a bus from Big Spring, Texas to Abilene, Texas for induction. And that's one of the first places I was so embarrassed. You know, you just stripped buck naked and had to bend over and show the old boy everything you own. And then they put us on an airplane, which I've never even been close to one, much less fly on one. They give us a number to remember. By the time we got to Fort Polk, Louisiana, which is US 543826667, which you'll never forget. And we got to Fort Polk, Louisiana, 2 o'clock in the morning. They kept us up to about 4, then they let us go to bed and got us back up at 5. And so we got everything we needed for that. And it was a good time, but oh, it was cold down there. And we had to walk ladders with our hands to get to go eat chow. When I started, couldn't walk from one to the next, and when I finished up, I could walk like 98 of them in a minute. And they made you very physically strong, I guess you'd say. But anyhow, I went from there to my AIT training in Fort Rucker, Alabama. We went through fixed wing. Then we went, instead of going into rotor wing, I wanted to be a helicopter mechanic because I was in the aircraft end of it anyhow. And we went to, several of us got stuck in a group that fed the boilers for the barracks. And we'd put coal in, it's all coal fired. We had to fire them. And at nights, them old boilers just be breathing, you know. And the butt cans upstairs, which had about that much water in them for cigarette butts, that would freeze. And I never did figure out why them boilers didn't heat the barracks more, but they didn't. It was very cold. But anyhow, then we went through rotor wing training, and seemed like it was early or mid-June. Then I finally got out of rotor wing school, went back to Coahoma, Texas, where I was raised, and spent a couple of weeks. Then I had to report to Fort Hood, Texas on June the 24th, my birthday. Had to report back to duty as a duty station. And then I was in D Troop, 2nd of the 1st Cavalry, for 6-8 months. Then they moved us out to Gray Army Airfield, where we got to actually work on helicopters. I got to see a helicopter out there. And worked on one quite a bit, and we got to load them and, you know, put the ammunition, what have you, on them so that the pilots could take them out and test the guns. But in March, I believe it was, me and no boy named Dave Womack was courier for 2 of the helicopters. They'd tear the blades off of them and put them in the belly. I'm sorry, we had 4. We had 4 helicopters. And we was courier for those 4 helicopters, and we went from Fort Hood, Texas to California, to Hawaii, to Wake Island, to somewhere in the Philippines, from there to Vietnam. And we just knew we was fixing to get shot down because that right after the Tet Offensive. And this was in early '68. And we just knew we was going to get shot. And we come off the airplane, the guns loaded, and everything we could put on to keep from getting shot, or if we did get shot, not get killed. And all there was people running around there, shorts and shoes on, you know, it like any other place, you know. Contractors over unloading all the airplanes and what have you, and felt kind of stupid after we got off, and oh, it was hot. So our unit was in Zion, spelled D-I-A-N, and it was the headquarters, Big Red 1. Well, about the middle of the next day, they flew us all out there, and it was hot and dusty, and I got exposed to Agent Orange there. They would spray our perimeters. These C-130s, I think they were, would fly around and just spray all the perimeters to kill all the foliage around it. But my first exposure to gunfire was we had a battery of 105s, oh, I don't know, quarter mile from us. And I was walking guard duty out there amongst the helicopters. And they were shooting shells, goodness knows where. But one of them pre-exploded over the top of the airfield. I mean, there was nowhere to go. I got under a helicopter. I was scared to death. But anyhow, not long after that, we went to get mortars. And that's quite an experience. But it's not that spooky, you know. But they come got us off of guard duty and made us get in the bunkers and be protected and all that. Well, we was there 2-3 months, and then we moved to Pleiku in the Central Highlands. And brand new hooches, or barracks, as you'd say. And they had pushed up old red clay and built them all on this red clay, and there wasn't a leaf of grass nowhere. And I liked working the night shift because you're going to have to pull guard duty anyhow, might as well be working. And come in one night about midnight, and normally we got rockets up there, and if you did not get rockets between midnight and 2 o'clock, you was okay. You go ahead and go to sleep, and you sleep pretty tight. But up till that time, you kind of stayed alert. And come in one night, and our shower room consisted of just 4-side wood floor, and I had all of my toiletries and my pan and my towel around me and my shower shoes on. Went out there, and the shower deal had a big metal tank which would heat up during the day, and the water would be warm at night. So I was out there showering. Here come the rockets. They'd hit right in behind our shower room out there. And I'd run for the sandbags around the building, and it had been raining. Lost my shower shoes in the mud, done the high dive behind the sandbags and just slid, you know, it covered me up with old red clay mud. And there was shrapnel sticking in the side of the barracks, and some was crying. And I tried to get up right in the corner of the sandbags, and the first sergeant's motorcycle was there. Couldn't get that thing out of the way. And so I just laid flat and hoped for the best, and I guess it turned out okay. We never lost a soul over there that I know of out of our bunch. We had some helicopters shot down, but didn't lose anyone. and really had a very good time. During the day, you could go downtown and buy things, look at their culture and what have you, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. As I told you earlier, I never shot at anybody that I know of, but we did take a lot of ammunition, go out to the perimeter and just target practice and waste it. I feel guilty because of the taxpayers buying that ammunition, but I figured they'd owe me something for sending me over there. But anyhow, I had a really good time. I didn't have all the horror stories. Guys that I've worked with tell about times that they got shot up and killed a bunch of people. I didn't see any of that, so it made it enjoyable. I worked on helicopters and pulled a tremendous amount of guard duty, and I'm trying to think something might have happened good. But anyhow, in early October, they come got my tools and said, "You're through. You're not going to work anymore." And the flechette rockets, where it has 1,500 nails in the warheads, had just arrived, and I got to fly out with them, and we would test them on ammo boxes and what have you. And I done more flying after they took my tools away from me than I did the whole time I was over there. But we'd go out and have a helicopter down, and our pilots always flew at treetop level, and that was kind of a harrowing experience. But I didn't really have any bad experiences. And then I wrote a letter about 2 weeks after I got home, where one of our pilots had taken off from a fire base and run the gun up through the cockpit, killed both of them. And we had Huey Cobras in our outfit. And then I got back to we flew from there to somewhere in Japan, to Fort Lewis, Washington, and then from there on into Midland, Odessa, and then I got out. But like I said, I didn't see anything bad, but I did see a lot of their culture, and I thought it was a very beautiful country, some of the prettiest country I've ever seen. And do you have any questions?
Yes, sir.
All right.
When you went over, you had the 4 helos.
Yes, sir.
And you ferried them in. You put them in like a C5 or something, Gary?
It was a big airplane. I don't know. Well, I do have a story about that. We was in Wake Island, and we left. It was 3 or 4 Air Force guys, then us 2 Army guys. And we left Wake Island one morning with a fire indicator light had come on because it had rained the night before and it shorted out. And I had already got back there and laid down on some boxes and was asleep. They come back there and shook me and told me to come up front. We was going to have to go back into Wake Island. As I passed one of the portholes, which is 6 inches across, I looked out and they was dumping fuel and had one of the blades feathered on the prop, and I just knew I was doomed. That was my last day on earth. But we made it in, and the guys that come in behind us caught up with us, and we had a good time that night. But anyhow, like I said, that was a harrowing experience because I thought we was going down, but we got in okay.
When you put these helos into this big airplane, I guess you take the rotors off?
They take the main shafts out of them, not just the rotors.
Gas turbine, I guess, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. There's gas turbine engines, and they took the blades off, and they'd take that main mast out because it was too high, okay. And they'd lay them in a box. I didn't disassemble them, so I don't know. But everything is very technical on a helicopter. Everything got to be safety wired, and certain torques on all the bolts, and we had I'm jumping to another story here. We had a little Hawaiian guy over there that, nice guy, nice kid, but he was infantry, assigned to us. He was an armorer. And the door gunners rode with metal plates underneath their seats. So if they took a bullet up through the belly of the plane, well, it wouldn't get them. Well, his was hanging down 5, 6 inches, and a 50 caliber machine gun hit it. And when it reached up there and slapped him, well, it made blisters on both cheeks. And he was so happy of them blisters, he showed everybody out there. And I don't blame him, I would have been too. But, you know, we had a pretty decent time over there, and but we worked a lot. That's all we did while we was over there, work on helicopters and pull guard duty at night time.
You mentioned you were exposed to Agent Orange.
Yes, sir.
Any disability from that, Gary, or?
I have diabetes. I went through the VA, and they said that they can't prove that it caused it, but they can't prove that it didn't cause it. And I get a small, well, I get a 20% disability out of it, and which helps out. Been on fixed income, it comes in handy. I haven't had it coming in about, maybe 2 years now, and it's not much, but I keep my diabetes in control. Got type 2 diabetes, and like I said, I don't know that it caused it, but I don't know that it didn't cause it, but I was exposed to it. Because they would fog spray these perimeters out there, and of course our old barracks wasn't far from the perimeters, and the stuff would just float over to you. But at that time, there wasn't nothing wrong with it. You know, it was considered just a defoliant.
We had a fellow that we interviewed probably a month ago, and he said he grew up in Mississippi, and the same thing they used to defoliate cotton was really the same thing that Agent Orange is. Mm-hmm. So he had some exposure, but might only be 20%, but you big sacrifice you made for that 20%.
Yeah, and I figured I was exposed on their ground over there, so.
You mentioned later that you were in Cobras.
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about that helicopter, Gary.
We went over with Charlie models, the Huey Charlie model gunships. And then we was over there, well, right after we moved to Pleiku, they brought in, we had 12 gunships as all Cobras, and it's a sleek machine. It's pretty nice. It had your minigun in the nose with the 40 Mac grenade launchers in the nose. Then it had miniguns under each. Little old stub wings was like 3 foot. And they'd have a rocket pod and a minigun mounted under it.
How many crew members?
Take that back. There was 2. I take that back. There was just rocket pods underneath the little wings. And
how many crew members?
There was 2. A pilot sat in back, co-pilot, gunner sat up front. And there's all warrant officers. We didn't have, after we got them in, we didn't have the door gunners and what have you, but we had door gunners up to that time. And we was taking a tail rotor off of a Huey one night, a gunship, and the armorers was out there checking continuity checks, see if there was static electricity on these rocket pods. In order to disarm them, you pull the firing pin back, which I guess it's electrical, but you pull it back, turn it sideways, well, it's off of the firing pin that way. And I guess one had got back on, but he was saying, all right, hit it, and he said, nothing here, hit it, nothing here, hit it. Well, I had just walked down off of a ladder thing that we had for, to get us up there where we could get the tail rotor off, had a hole in it. And I had just stepped on the ground. He said, okay, hit it, and one went off. And it blowed me just down on the ground. Well, we just knew it was taking rockets from outside in, you know. So they have revetments, which they park them between, and it's metal filled with dirt so that the shrapnel can't tear you helicopters up. And I got in the end of one, and I was a 200-pound kid, and the dude that was helping me was from Moorhead, Kentucky, an old boy named Sammy Norris, and he was just dried up, thin. He picked me up, moved me, and he got my spot. And I didn't know how he ever even picked me up, but he did. He got me out of the way because he got in between me and the revetment there where he wouldn't get shrapnel. But after we figured out what was going on, we looked through the rocket tube, and we had a brand new 3/4-ton Jeep sitting out there. And that rocket should have went through the windshield of that thing, but it didn't. It rose, went over it, on top of the hill, 500 yards up there, and blowed about a 6-foot hole in the back of a brand new hangar they'd built. I mean, it wasn't even occupied yet, but they tore a big hole in the back of it. But that was one of the more harrowing experiences that I had.
You mentioned that you enjoyed your time there, enjoyed the Vietnamese culture. You get to know some native Vietnamese people?
None other than the little old girl that we had cleaning up our hooch, our barracks. Her name was Song, and we'd tease her and ask her, what are you going to do if all the GIs leave? She said, I don't care. I just wish you'd get out. She didn't want us there. And as the saying goes, I don't know it to be true, that they would work for you during the day and shoot rockets at you during the night. But she was a comical little old gal, but she wouldn't have nothing to do with the GIs. She done come in, done her job, and she went home, and that was it. But I didn't get to know anybody else over there, like somebody downtown or anything like that. But it was very similar to Mexico, if you've ever been down in Mexico. A poor culture. Everybody over there just struggling to get by, and as it is in Mexico. So
You eat the Vietnamese food, the native food?
I eat some, and it was very tasty. Of course, they told me it's possibly dog, but pretty tasty dog. I didn't drink none of their beer. I drank some American beer, but I didn't drink none of their native beer. I heard it had formaldehyde in it, but I didn't know that to be fact because I never drank any.
Philippine beer was we had a lot of Philippine beer.
Did
you? Yeah. Flechette rockets. Just clarification, the Flechettes were our rockets.
Yes, sir. There was a new rocket on the market, I guess new on the market. It was new to us.
Anti-personnel.
Right, strictly anti-personnel. And it had 1,500, so I'm told, little old, say about a number 6 nail with a head mashed on it like a dart. And they said that thing runs out there and does so many revolutions and explodes, and just 1,500 little nails coming at you. And we took, like 30 ammo rocket boxes out there, those wooden boxes, and shot them, and it would just splinter them. These nails go through them sideways, backwards, every which way. But that's what they was, anti-personnel.
These helos that you worked on, they do all daytime operation, or were there night operations too, Gary?
We had very little night operations. When I was getting ready to leave, we was being overrun, the perimeter was. I'd done turned my gun in and everything. I felt totally helpless. They made us go to battalion headquarters, and they said we're being overrun by the Vietnamese. And these helicopters would come in. I mean, they flew that night, and this was 11 o'clock, maybe 12. And they would fly in, and the selector switch on the dash either put it miniguns or rockets. And you had the same trigger, shot both of them. And they would sit there and hold that trigger and flip this switch. And that's one of the most spectacular fireworks show I've ever seen in my life. They would come in, and then just as soon as he'd peel off, another one would come in. And I'm sure it was just death and destruction, but my goodness, you had to do something.
When you came back, your experience there, did you ever work on helicopters when you got back? Did the Army experience translate anything that you did later, Gary?
I applied for Bell Helicopter here in Fort Worth, and they said the helicopter mechanics are a dime a dozen now. And so I went back to General Dynamics where I was working before on the F-111, and got that job back and stayed there, and they was laying off 200 people a week or so. And I got on with the Union Pacific Railroad in November of '71, and I told them I'd like to wait the first of the year. So January the 5th of '71, I went to work for the Union Pacific Railroad and stayed there until September the 30th of '08. Oh, wow. And I retired. Give them 38 years. Well, it would have been 38 years in January.
You enjoyed your experience. Well, you made the best of your experience.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
You ever go back, or you have any desire to go back?
No, sir.
No need to go back?
No need whatsoever to go back. Like I said, it's beautiful, beautiful country, but it's just, I was there, I made the best of it, and I didn't get shot up or injured in any way other than Agent Orange. But I don't regret what I did, but I don't want to do it again, if that makes sense.
In your time there, Gary, did you get any time for R&R? They send you. Did you go out of country, or did you go, say, down to Vung Tau, or?
We went to Nha Trang, I want to say, for 4 days. That's the only R&R I had over there. Because I wasn't there. I wasn't there a full year. Yeah. Okay. We got there as a new unit, and they was rotating us guys out, which my time was up. And by rotating us out, well, they didn't lose everybody all at one time. You know, they had time to get people in and get them retrained. But we done some R&R in Nha Trang, I think it was.
Is that on the coast?
Yes, sir. It was had a beach right in front of us, and had a great time. But didn't have a gun. I was told the Viet Cong took their R&Rs there too. So I don't know. But we did. We had a great time, and I'd got a picture taken of me in one of them little rickshaws where they pull you, and my DD-214 said returning from overseas. It didn't say from Vietnam, and I couldn't prove that I was in Vietnam, so I carried him a bunch of them pictures, and he said, "Hey, that's Vietnam, you know," and so that's what showed proof that I was in Vietnam and exposed to Agent Orange.
One, I guess, last thing here, Gary. You said when you were leaving, the base was being overrun.
Yeah, it's.
Do you know what the outcome was of that?
They stopped it.
They stopped it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
By 1 o'clock, it was over with. I think it was a harassment move on the Viet Cong part, but the Cobras probably help stop it, I feel. But they're an awesome aircraft, and like I said, I don't regret what I did, but I wouldn't give 2 cents to do it again.
Your maintenance work on these helicopters, you did the maintenance work, and then you pulled a lot of guard duty.
Yes, sir.
Was was your maintenance just planned maintenance, or did they have some combat, some battle scars on them that you had to fix?
We, myself, we had a fastener come off of the cowling on the Cobra, and it went through the engine. Well, we had engine guys that took the engine off and sent it off to wherever they did to repair all the damage inside of it. Most of mine was all scheduled. Very little was battle damage. Now we had our worst battle damage was holes in the blades. They'd shoot holes through the blades, and we had other guys that did that. I wasn't in that
The
field.
balance on those blades, do the holes just really throw them out of balance, create a big problem?
I don't know if they caused it to shake or anything like that, but it sure made them whistle. That hole in that blade is just like a whistle, you know. When it come in, it'd have a to it, and is a high-pitched whistle. And the guys would take it off, and they had, I don't know, something to do with lasers, and they would set them blades up and bounce them with it. It had a big room for that.
I'm about out of questions, sir, but it's an interesting story, and certainly your attitude, been there, done that, don't want to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
You bet. We appreciate you coming by this morning, Gary, and spending the time with us, and appreciate the time you spent for the good old United States.
Well, thank you.
You bet.
Like I said, I don't regret any of it, but I just don't want to do it no more.
You bet.